I'd like to talk about the news and people's relationship with it. Um, what it really means, what it really is, and why there's controversy around it. And so the main talking points around it are: is it trustworthy? Mainly. But then also, if it is trustworthy, is it showing us the most relevant things? But here's the reality, and that is the news is just someone speaking, someone playing a video of something. At its core, what the news really is a projection. And then, depending on how many people believe that projection and their constitution, shall we say, their own, I guess you could say, their profile, like who they are, sort of as a reactionary being, or in other words, how they're going to react to that projection. Then, on a collective level, on a wide scale level, there's a lot of people that listen and hear the same projection, and they have a reaction to it, some kind of reaction to it, even if it's just internal. And now, because they can fairly well calculate what kinds of people are listening, or that is to say, they know what kind of reactions that they will reasonably be able to expect when projecting something, that is, saying something. They can then calculate a narrative which will ultimately guide people into certain kinds of action. Or they want you to just feel or be a certain kind of way. And this narrative then directs your emotions, essentially. It directs your emotions. As long, of course, as you believe in it, believe that it's true, believe that it's somehow trustworthy. But even if you don't believe that, you can still be activated by it, because they're looking for an emotional reaction, not for whether or not you believe it. Because as long as you have an emotional reaction, you do believe something about it, regardless of whether or not you believe what they're saying. This can also be calculated. And the calculation is so that they can funnel you into some narrative or another. And this really isn't anything new. People already know this. But the thing that seems to go unnoticed is that when you get down to the core of why we still even accept the news as anything, as something that can direct us, it really comes down to an issue of, well, it's at the very minimum, it's safety. It's keeping us safe. Because the thinking is, well, the news is going to tell me what's happening outside of my circle, and so that's why we need it, because it's going to let us know that, we have to do something or not do something. And so there's this minimum thought process of, well, we need it, basically. We need it because it's going to protect us at the very minimum. However, in the older days, this kind of thing was done through with watchmen, or just people that had a post for watching. We can just call them watchers. Somebody keeping an eye out. Now, in modern days, the news has taken this place. It has taken the place of the watchers, the ones who keep an eye out. And yet people still distrust whether it's even true or not. But at the same time, there is no one else taking the place of watchers. So people end up putting up with it because there's no one else, or no one else taking that place. Then there's methods for getting you to basically, psychological methods to basically force you to have no other option other than to at least consider what they're saying. These are just, I wouldn't really call them tricks. They're just ways of saying things so that you can be more likely to trust them. Such as, oh, this was corroborated by, or this was seen by someone else, or here's the source, or here's the video, or whatever they are using, because the contents of what you might trust changes based on what society in general believes. But the formatting, they can just change it and come at you from a particular angle, which will have you more easily believing them. This comes down to even how the anchor, especially how a news anchor speaks and acts. This is actually why they're called an anchor, because they are doing that exact job. It's an acting job. They anchor facts. That's their job. Whether or not that fact is actually real doesn't really have anything to do with how they act. Now, let's look at the difference between someone who is posted on a watch and someone who is a news anchor. The news anchor is telling a story, whereas the person posted on a watch is just posted on a watch. And if there's something that happens, they'll come and tell you, but if nothing happens, then they don't tell you anything. Which is where the saying, no news is good news, comes from. And why particularly would that be good news? That would be, well, no one's interfering with how you're doing your life. But let's get down to why a story is different. Let's say they tell you that a plane goes down. What kind of feeling does this invoke in you? And more importantly, would you have had that feeling if you didn't know about it? And another thing to consider is, did it affect you? Is it going to affect you in the future if you had not ever known about it? And if it's not going to affect you in the future, had you not known about it, then why exactly did you even need to know about it in the first place? Because if you think about it rationally, They're telling you something that happened already, which means that the only people that actually need to know about it are people that are involved, or that is people that are loosely involved as well. But it affects an area if that happens, right? But it doesn't affect you or your life, especially since plenty of people never even fly in the first place, have never even stepped foot on a plane. And yet you still find yourself somehow fearing the whole thing. It gnaws at you. And you don't even really know why. Or maybe you feel empathetic toward all of them. And so you start feeling sympathetic, which is just you lending a bit of your energy to that, whether by fear or by sympathy. But the point I'm making here is that, is the news anchor, the story that they're telling you, is this story keeping you safe? And the only rational answer to this is absolutely not. They are not keeping you safe. They are telling you something after the fact. That's the only thing that they can do. In fact, if they told you something before the fact, then it wouldn't be a fact. And that would be going against everything, the institution and the way they do things. But regardless of the way they do things, they're not keeping you safe. They're telling you things after the fact because that's all that they can do. And that's only them being perfectly and strictly honest. So, what's the difference between an anchor and a watchman? The watchman is constantly active in and around circles, certain groups of people or whatever, certain areas, which all, of course, today sort of sounds ridiculous because everyone just is in this big collective called a country. It's just everybody in a country. The only thing outside of their circle would be a different country. So what are they really keeping you safe from? Your neighbor, the one who also listens to the news? Like, that's why it kind of sounds ridiculous, because everybody puts themselves in this super wide category of people, even though you have nothing to do with any of these other people other than the fact that you all are operating under the same governance, under the same system of governance. So everyone expects peace, except they still, you still find the need to be fearful of outliers, right? People that don't follow the rules. And so you put your trust in, people like the cops, right? Because they're supposed to be taking care of that. However, they also are only a reactionary force. They only respond to your call. Otherwise, they'll catch you for speeding, but they're not going to necessarily catch you for anything else. How can they? The fact hasn't happened yet. So at the same time, the police force also takes over the position of watchmen, essentially. They're supposed to be watching out for people's safety, and that's what they advertise. However, they are not telling any story. They're just out and about. And if you ask them for a story, then they'll probably just tell you that they have things handled. Because to tell you anything else would mean that they're not doing their job. So we have anchors and police force, the news and the police force, both claiming that they're looking out for your safety. But the issue is an issue of motivation. Who are they? What are they actually motivated by? And that, of course, is who they work for, which is not you, even if some people say to the contrary. But I'm talking about actual real motivation. Like, who do they work for? They work for a company. So their loyalty is to that company. So the people involved have nothing to do with you in particular. Now, if you go back, their company might have some public statement that claims this or that. However, what they cannot claim is a fact before it happens. So the core point here is that they can't keep you safe. Not directly, only indirectly through people's general, they create sort of a threshold to a lot of different things, but the people that actually want to go against that are going to find ways around it. This would be equivalent to setting up some kind of small temporary dam in a creek in order to do whatever, but then the first rain that comes along washes the dam out. That would be the equivalence of the police force and the news. That's all they can do. But then if you consider how a news story, for example, it creates emotional reactions in people. Now, just for a minute, imagine if that story was a total fake, was just something that was created out of thin air, didn't actually happen as of yet. And let's say it's a plane going down, for example, and they have a picture or a video of a plane going down. It might be real, doesn't really have to be not real. I'm sure there's a video of that somewhere that's actually real. The point is that they could have taken a picture of it landing and then spliced it with, and of course, it doesn't really matter. The point is that the video can indeed be fake. In the old days, it was a lot easier because all you had to do is print some words on a newspaper. Very easy. Nowadays, a video, harder to do, still doable. The point is if they wanted to tell you something fake, what it would do is it would trigger the same emotional reactions in you that it would if it was real. What that does is it makes that event more likely to happen. That's the actual effect of the news. It's like I said at the beginning of the video, news is projection. It's exactly that. So, regardless of whether or not they're telling you what is true or what is untrue, the fact remains is that it is a story, it's a projection, and it has the ability to cause events to happen even if they haven't happened yet. Because essentially it's, call it magic, right? Basically, that's what it is. Or, other people, you could call it witchcraft, you could call it by a lot of different names. Essentially, it's just energy. That would be a modern term of it. It's just energy. And it's ways of manipulating your energy. Because we're all connected, that's how it works. Like it wouldn't, if we weren't all connected, that kind of thing wouldn't be possible. But it's just an example of how we are connected. So the issue is, what are they telling you? Not whether or not it's true. Do you understand? Because a projection doesn't ask you whether or not something is true. It just is telling you something, period. So the question you should be asking yourself is, do I like what they're telling me? Not, is this true? Because did it affect you? Does it affect you other than you knowing about it? Most of the time, no. You stick your head out the door, everything's peaceful, fine. And I'm not saying tragedy doesn't strike, but what I am saying is that people who are following the news are following a projection, not events. So I guess what I'm saying here is that you are not safe by them, and they cannot make you safe unless they told you something that could make you safe. Collectively, generally, they are not any different than Hollywood. Because let's say a plane falls out of the sky directly on top of your house and kills you and everybody in the plane, then how's that going to help you if you knew about it after the fact? And yet, while you're still alive, you find yourself worrying about something like this happening because you heard something like this happening on the news. You see, so what is actually happening is, before you heard about it, you weren't worrying about anything. After you heard about it, you started having this uneasy feeling. And that was the entire purpose of the story, of the news story in the first place. Because did they really need to tell you about that, even if it did happen, regardless of whether or not it happened? Because that's not the point here. The point is, did you really need to know about it? And the fact is that no, you did not. Even though your fear and your worry tells you that you did need to know. Well, I did need to know that, right? Right? But even while you're worrying about that and having some kind of anxiety, next door in your same hometown, some other atrocious thing may have actually occurred and you never heard about it because you're just not going to hear about every little thing. And then, of course, you might say, well, those kind of things go up on, active things. However, that's just your fear speaking, because what actually goes up on those things is a story. Whether or not it's true. Because let's say that it is true. Let's say something terrible happens in your town. Tell me, how's that going to change how you live your life, other than you just worrying about it? Like, what I mean by change how you live your life is, are you going to not get up and go to work the next day? You're going to maybe talk about all of these things, but that is stemming from the story you heard, not how you're actually changing the way you live. So, in other words, regardless of how horrific the act may have been, the story about it is merely entertainment. And people that are in fear about various things happening are just that. They're just in fear of them. They have no bearing on what is real. They are just following a narrative, a story. Of course, the difference between a narrative and a story, they're the same thing, really. A narrative is just going somewhere. A story is just an event. A story is just something that happens. A narrative is an ongoing thing. So, a series of stories, essentially. But if you think about it rationally, what are you really worried about? Is it that happening to you? Obviously, right? But why? Why are you worried? Are you doing anything about it? And the answer is no. And you would probably say, well, that's not even what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to just go to work and do my thing, and then the people that are supposed to take care of that are supposed to take care of it. So again, I ask you, why are you worrying about it? And of course, the real answer is why you're worrying about it is the fact that you heard that it happened. And so the question is, did you need to know? And the answer is no, you didn't. Because at the end of the day, it didn't affect you. And it didn't affect how you're going to live your future either. So the only thing that you're actually left with at the end of the day is the story that you heard, and nothing else. Was it at least entertaining? Of course, this stuff is supposed to be real, so it's not supposed to be just entertainment, but that's all it actually effectively is. And then, of course, you would say, well, we have the right to know if somebody is on the loose killing people, to use an example that's considered overtly bad, right, by pretty much everybody, right? But anyways, however exciting it may be to hear something like this, did you really need to know? Do you really have that right? Isn't that kind of information just going to be spread around anyways, just from the excitement of it, regardless of anyone officially telling any news? But more importantly, who is that person? Isn't it potentially you? Do you have the right to know whether or not you're going to run around and go on a rampage tomorrow? Do you have that right? And of course, I sound ludicrous, right? But I'm making a point, obviously. And the point is that if that person could be you, potentially, since who the fuck are you? Somebody that just got a little too irritated one day, so you just decided to go on a rampage, or maybe your long-term plans finally just popped into view and you were like, you know what, I think today is the day. I've been planning this for 50 years and now I'm gonna become a murderer. The point is that news, that's you. So did you need to know about it beyond the fact that, you might be addicted to worrying about things or something else? I mean, by all means, be entertained. Because we all know that you like to be entertained, right? Whether it's the news or an exciting story on your TV or any other thing, there's all kinds of entertainment. So what happens is the story ends up becoming part of your circle. It becomes the perimeter of your circle, as it were. It's like, oh, what's going on over here, over there, over here, over everywhere? What's going on? It becomes this thing which you emotionally interact with, but it's not really actually real to you and to your daily life. It ends up just becoming entertainment. And so far as safety is concerned, then, I mean, we've already gone over how the news and the cops, both of them, are not able to keep you safe. They only are reactionary forces. Even if they were granting them, even if we're saying that they are true, they're still only reactionary. So concerning safety, what are you going to do to keep yourself safe? That is entirely up to you. That is entirely up to how you live your life. And everybody knows bad things happen. But you worrying about bad things happening is causing you undue stress. Or if you're not worrying, then you're just taking it as entertainment, which is how it should be taken. The point is what story is being followed and generated by the news is not really relevant to how you're living your daily life. It's just about some stuff that happens, this war or that war, all kinds of things, right? But how are you living your life concerning it? And yes, ultimately, you would need to know certain things that are happening around you and in the world. But the key thing here is that people's relationship with the news, as an example, as the people's relationship with whatever source of information outside of their circle, whatever that source of information may be, whether it's the official news or whatever, the problem is that people are thinking that it is keeping them safe and that they need it. But really what they're doing is they're just locking themselves into a situation that they are letting rule their life, rule at least a part of their emotional life. Because the thing is that people exist, and these kinds of things would end up being known anyways without the need for any news. and in a more convenient way even. The world would be a little bit slower, and that's a good thing. In other words, the things that you really need to know about, you'll know about, regardless of some company telling you things. Unless you're just dead. I mean, you have a life, right? And I'm not telling you don't listen to the news, but what I am telling you is that you shouldn't let it worry you, even if the events are real.